Hi everyone. This is 6.2. We're going to do solving multi-step inequalities. It's actually going to be one of our shortest days of notes of the whole year because you guys learned everything you needed to in part 1 on the one-step inequalities. We're just doing more than one step at a time. In fact, let's start with that. I said just like in part 1, like what we learned yesterday, solving inequalities is just like solving equations, but with that one extra rule. So just remember, I'm going to solve my equation, I'm going to isolate my variable, I'm going to do the same thing to both sides of the equation. I got that one thing in the back of my mind. If I ever multiply or divide both sides of the equation by a negative number, it flips the inequality. Less than becomes greater than becomes less than. So we're going to do two examples together, and that's going to be it. I told you, shortest day of the notes of the year. So we are going to do both solve and graph like we did in part 1, or in section 1. And our equation is 2 times x plus 4 is less than 3x minus 7. So here's my inequality. I'm going to solve for x, and I'm going to do the same thing on both sides. Now actually, before I do anything to both sides, the first step for this question is to do the distributive property. Let's get rid of those parentheses. So 2 times x is 2x, plus 2 times 4 is 8. We'll leave our less than, and we'll leave the 3x minus 7. Okay, now I have x's on both sides. When you have that, you got to get rid of one of them. It actually doesn't matter which one you get rid of, but I like to get rid of the smaller one. So for my next step, I'm going to do a minus 2x to cancel out that 2x. And I'm going to do the same thing over here under the 3x. So those are gone. It leaves just an 8 is less than. Now 3x minus 2x is 1x. I would probably just put x. I wouldn't even put the 1 there. And you still have the minus 7. Only one step left. Got to get rid of that minus 7. I'll use a plus 7 on both sides, of course. And we get 15 is less than x, which is, again, we talked about this in part 1. It's kind of written backwards. Instead of saying 15 is less than x, I'm going to say x is greater than 15. So there's the solving part. Now we need to do the graphing part. So I'm going to put out a number line. I'm going to put 0 in the middle. Now when you're doing a number line, you can scale it any way you want, just like when we're plotting x, y. So since that's a pretty big number, 15, I'm going to count by 5s. I'm going to say 5, 10, 15 is right here. This would be negative 5, 10, and 15. And then for the graphing part, I'm going to go to the number 15 on the number line. I'm going to say this was not an or equal to question, so I'm not going to do the dot, I'm going to do the circle. And then since my final answer was x is greater than means to the right. So I'm going to shade all these numbers over here to the right. End with a shaded arrow, big arrow. And those are my answers. All the numbers greater than 15. Everything to the right of 15. All right, let's do one more. We have negative 8x plus 14 is greater than or equal to negative 10. All right, I can put in my dotted line here if I want. I can say I need to solve for x, which means I need to isolate x. Let's get rid of all the things around it. So for step 1, I probably want to get rid of that 14. I'm going to use a minus 14 to cancel out a plus 14. Do same thing on both sides. Those are gone. Leaves just negative 8x here. The sign stays the same. It's still greater than or equal to. And negative 10 minus 14 would be negative 24. Now, next step, I want to get rid of that negative 8. So I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 8. Now remember, that's the important one. I'll highlight it in yellow there. When you divide or multiply both sides by a negative, that's what switches the inequality. So all of a sudden, instead of greater than or equal to, this is now less than or equal to. But then the rest of the question is still the same. Negative 8 cancels with negative 8 and leaves x. Negative 24 divided by 8. Negative divided by negative is positive. 24 divided by 8 is 3. So So final answer is x is greater than, or I'm sorry, x is less than or equal to 3. And the last thing I asked you guys to do, just like the first example, is let's graph it. So here's 0, here's 3. That's my key number for this problem. This time we did have the or equal to, so I'm going to fill in the dot or closed circle. And my final, even though the original question was a greater than or equal to, which would shade to the right, this question, the final answer is less than or equal to, so I'm going to shade over here on the left. Darken in color in the line over here to the left. And it's going to show me that my answers are all the points to the left of, or less than, or equal to, for the dot, 3. So that's it for notes. I told you, one of our shortest of the year. All you have to do is the same thing as 6.1, solve for x. Just remember the one extra rule, it's highlighted in yellow right now. If you ever multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality. But other than that, very straightforward, maybe graph at the end. And it's just like what we did in 6.1, but you have to do more than one step, multi-step inequality.